Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hey everyone, checking in on the MJ sector. So certainly a memorable day for the Bears. Big bear day. And we are not seeing signs that it's done just yet because we have a lot of names closing at the low of the day, setting up for the potential of a gap down open or maybe a higher open and a break of the low of today for a bit more further downside. So why are we so red today? Take your pick. Could be more deaths from the vapes out there. A handful more deaths. Could be Hexo with terrible reaction to earnings, down 23%. And we now have, what was the third one? VFF came out with dilution. That was speculated upon based on the relative weakness compared to the sector. And then, of course, we get that news to come out. Yesterday was a pretty big clue, just increasing bear volume, fell through its support before everybody else. Some other bad news out there. Canopy Growth heads to court with hemp producer over lost 1.1 thousand acres of production. So he said, she said, finger pointing, double suing, not a good scenario, also adding to the fear in the sector. So it is ugly out there, and we are looking at what, in my opinion, this sector is going to bottom when we see capitulation. And capitulation kind of bottom is when it's just an absolute waterfall, similar today, but one day alone wouldn't be enough. But just a waterfall of selling pressure into a V shape of a bounce. The bounce is so significant that it does cause a significant amount of short covering, and it pretty much marks the bottom. Now, Bitcoin did not do that, and I'm going to bring up Bitcoin as a relative comparison because, again, the hype and the FOMO was so strong, and then the fear and the FUD was so strong on the way back down. We dropped 85%, and both sectors have a lot of new investors and traders in it who are extra emotional, and that just magnifies these cycles. So we are in the midst of a very significant fear cycle. The weekly RSI on CGC is oversold. So the point is Bitcoin leveled out and then traded sideways for a while and then changed its weekly trend, and we saw a 400% move from the low. So down 85%, up 400%. Do I think we're going to see 400% in this sector? Not nearly as quick as what Bitcoin did, but what I do feel is that there is going to be significant opportunity. Honestly, if you're sitting all cash right now, you're just saying the more beat up, the better, because the gains on the way back up will be that much better. And even at this point, let's just say that CGC were to flush down and climax at $18. We only need to bounce back up to the price in July to see a 100% move. So having cash allows you to capitalize on that opportunity. And obviously, if bag holding, it's a much different story, which is why we try and prevent from bag holding as much as we're able to. And that's why stop losses are so important. So just as another example of that, I was trading CGC in someone else's account looking for a long-term position. And this previous dump, I ended up getting an entry in the 2470s. And then we saw significant follow through, and that position was up very nicely. And while I left money on the table because it was a long-term position and I wasn't just trying to lock in, a 15% move in 2 weeks, I put my stop at break even, and now that position is back to all cash, and it's just been sitting and patiently waiting. And I will redeploy and have the same exact game plan, wait till things get extreme, make an entry. Once we see some bounce and I get some space and some profit, I'll put a break-even stop loss and see if we can nail the bottom and see a shift. So again, I do believe that the MJ sector will have 100% gain opportunities when the bottom is hit. Do I know when the bottom is going to be hit? Absolutely not. I have no idea. But I didn't know when Bitcoin's bottom was going to be hit, and I said the same thing, and that was a conservative guess that we were going to see 100% move easily, and it ended up being 400%. I like to underpromise and over-deliver. So the MJ space, for those in cash, will provide, in my opinion, a 100% opportunity when this momentum shifts. It's just a matter of time, and we have to be patient while we wait for that to happen. We also got news that Mitch McConnell's heading out to California, and he's going to be hearing about the situation out there in the marijuana sector, the need for banking regulation. Again, it just further incrementally increases the chances that we do see a vote in the Senate on the SAFE Act. I do believe that we will see temporary bottoms in the USMJ space marked if we get a vote on the SAFE Act. And people like me, I mean, it's really hard. If I want to establish a position in the USMJ space, when we're dumping, it's easy. When we're seeing low volume and nothing's really going on, or we're trading sideways, it's hard to establish a position in terms of the size of the position that I want. Just know that if we get news that the SAFE Act is going to get voted on and before the end of the year, people like me, and I know that in the Chart Guys group alone, we're talking millions of dollars, are going to be market buying these USMJ names, and they will respond significantly on top of any short covering that does take place from there. So that's something to be watching for in the short term. But other than that, even without that news, I do believe that we are going to be keeping an eye out for a temporary short-term bottom upcoming. We have APHA earnings upcoming, so maybe it's going to take another flush down through the next earnings season. Essentially, we're just waiting now. It's no longer we're saying who's the strongest in the sector. We're saying who's the least ugly, who is the least weak name, because everybody is being dragged down. So CGC has broken its support level. Did we change the daily trend? No. We got red flags. We got no follow through yesterday. Took my small loss on Cron, and that's preventing me from being a bag holder. I looked to trade, or actually it wasn't Cron, it was ACB yesterday. But I took that small loss because we didn't get follow through on the break from the high of Tuesday. And if I had not taken that loss, and if I did not have a stop loss, I would now be down probably 4 times as much. So CGC closed at the low of the day. The weekly RSI is oversold. Where did we bounce from the last time? It was down at about 25. Where are we now? 27. Daily RSI is just getting to oversold. We bounced right at 30 last time, but in the recent past, it's dropped down to the low 20s as well. 4-hour RSI oversold, but in the recent past, it has been this low. And the hourly RSI is what has me interested in tomorrow, although during extended hours here, if we cool off this hourly RSI, that makes me a bit less interested and a bit more patient looking for a bounce. So I am interested in an hourly oversold bounce tomorrow, and what we have to be aware of as well is Canada is closed Thanksgiving on Monday, the US is not. So I wouldn't mind seeing a red day Friday and then a bounce day Monday, and anybody in Canada that's short gets a little bit trapped, or maybe not trapped, but just can't cover for a day. I think that's a good day to try a bounce in the sector, but we'll see what tomorrow does. And I will be interested if this hourly RSI gets in the low teens. If we start tomorrow with a higher open and we break the lows of today first thing, that means be patient, because hourly RSIs have cooled off a bit, and we can absolutely see another leg down as we are not at extremes, and perhaps having some headlines and some fears cycle through the weekend can get that short-term flush. Do not play oversold bounces in this sector unless you are comfortable playing oversold bounces. I talk about playing oversold bounces all the time because it's one of my favorite trades, and statistically I can look back and say it's a good idea for me to take these trades because it works out well. So otherwise, you are just patiently waiting for a daily trend change, and at this point, CGC has been in such a clear daily downtrend since the upper 20s from 28.89 when the bears took back over again, just waiting for the daily trend change at a bare minimum. So any bounce on the hourly on CGC, when we do see the oversold bounce get going, will just be an hourly lower high. Cron dropping down to a lower low, no support levels nearby. Next support we're looking down at is 752. So 752 and 7 psychological. Weekly RSI is oversold, similar to CGC. The daily RSI is a lot more oversold, and it's one of the most oversold it's been now. So if we do see another leg down tomorrow, we are going to be in extreme oversold conditions. 4-hour RSI is the same in CGC, and the hourly RSI cooling off a bit more than CGC. So the daily and the weekly are definitely more beat up on Cron. And again, we don't need to nail the bottom. If we're looking at the monthly time frame and we're looking for whenever we hit the bottom, and then we just look for a monthly lower high, again, 50% move very easily, but we have to hit that climax bottom where everybody that's going to sell has sold, and where everybody that's going to open a short position has already done so. That's when the scales tip. Right now, the scales obviously favoring the bears very significantly, but every time a long position sells and we run out of people to sell their bullish positions, and we run out of people that think entering a short trade is a good idea, that's when we bounce. And we will hit that point, we always do, and that's when the significant shift will take place. Potential that a catalyst will be the cause for it, but even if there's not a catalyst, it will still happen eventually. ACB, lower high, lower low, gave us the red flag yesterday, dropped down, broke 380. So the weekly time frame now, we are looking at the next support all the way down. I don't even know where. For broke, we're looking at 392, that broke. 389 was a little gap that filled. We're looking down at 3 psychological as the next clear level. There is very little support established in this area, just like other names like VFF that ran up so hard, they don't have support established in this range, and RSI levels can get more extreme because of that. So the weekly RSI is oversold, the daily, the 4-hour, not so much, the hourly cooling off in extended hours. So because of this extended hours little bounce attempt, we can absolutely see another leg down tomorrow morning. APHA had a huge dump today. Remember when we were close to making it? The lead sector bull, technically speaking, and it failed, and then it dropped, and here we are back at the short scare lows. 455 is the support level from there. We broke that level today, and then it's just the bottom, 4 and then 375. We did see, I wasn't watching trading today, I was only trading the first hour today, but just reading back in the chat room, there was a huge sell order that just walked it down. And at one point, APHA was down, 16%? Way more than other Canadian MJ, aside from Hexo, which had earnings. And here's that bounce where we saw a very significant bounce. Just pretty much, this is actually a good example. We bounced 7%. But this is an example of there is a seller, and they were walking it down, a very large sell position, and it got to a point where there was no shares left to sell, and that's when the bounce takes place. No one's entering short down at those levels, and that long, who is selling those shares, had no more shares to sell, then the bounce takes place. So resistance to be watching tomorrow is the top of that bounce, 475. Anything under that is an hourly lower high, and even if we break that, we will still just be looking for an hourly lower high. Keep in mind that for all of these names, we will see an hourly oversold bounce in the near term because of their RSI levels. Again, they're cooling off in extended hours, but with a red day tomorrow, we will be watching for hourly oversold bounces, but we remind ourselves we are just looking for hourly lower highs, which is why with my strategy on playing those bounces, I like to get into a position, we get some follow through. On the bounce, I sell half of my position, and I try and put my stop loss under the low at that point in a break-even stop loss. So I can try and let that hourly bounce develop into something more, perhaps a daily oversold bounce. But if I'm wrong, I don't lose anything. That's the ideal scenario, and that's why I'm always looking to scale out a partial position to protect myself when I am playing counter the trend. TLRY, big leg down on the bear flag confirming. All-time low is 2010, and that's the only level nearby. So 2010, support, and then we're just looking at psychological levels and black dirt breakdown. The weekly RSI is only just now getting oversold, but the daily RSI is very oversold, down in the low 20s. And 4-hour cooling off in extended hours, as is everybody. S&P 500's up a bit after hours, so that is leading to likely higher opens for tomorrow, which again, that just opens the door for another leg down, absolutely possible. There will be bottom fishing plays if we do see higher opens, bottom fishing off of the low of today, but if the lows of today break, it's just another leg down with cooled off hourly RSI. Hexo, so there's the bear reaction. Again, it's not earnings, it's their guidance on upcoming earnings. Weekly chart, increasing bear volume. 302 broke. Next support is 264 and then 244. And little support after those two levels. Bears in complete control. Weekly RSI touching 30. Daily RSI oversold. 4-hour crushed. And resistance short term is 291. Anything under that is an hourly lower high. And we did end with a bit of a tightening range. Pretty much a 15-minute equilibrium. 271 and 77 supports. And 291 and $3 resistances. OGI getting extremely ugly. The daily RSI on OGI is 16. The weekly RSI is oversold. We have very limited support nearby. What's the next level? 257, and then a lack of support under that. Look at the amount of bear volume from that all-time high. It was just a mass exodus. Way more bear volume on the way down than bull volume on the way up. And OGI is on its way to getting very beat up. It's been that way for a while. We will see significant percentage bounces, but those bounces will just be lower highs until the sector changes the daily trend. And then we got to change the weekly trend. When we are in a daily and a weekly trend, then I will say the sector sentiment has shifted. A daily trend will be the start of it, but we will just be looking for weekly lower highs even when we change the daily trend. So again, it's going to be a long, slow road to change enough time frame trends for us to be confident in the bulls again, and that may take a few months from now. VFF, gap down on earnings. The bulls, or not earnings, sorry, gap down on dilution news. So we did see some dip buying there. Resistance is the top of the bounce of 743. We've got support at 717 and 684. And we have cooled off short-term RSI levels. Anything on the daily chart under 949 is just a daily lower high. And we're in an area with a lack of support, just like a lot of other names. T-God, extremely weak. Continuing, their price cut was, what, 70 cents? So close at the low of the day. Red Marabozu. We're going to have a whole bunch of penny stocks that are going to wither away in this sector. Not saying T-God will be one of them, but there are a bunch of names that are definitely not going to survive this long term. They'll probably still be traded, and they will just slowly fade down into oblivion. So we have to be cautious of that. Curaleaf, bear break of the hourly equilibrium we were watching. Not a huge red day. I mean, what percent are we above our recent low? As Canadian MJ is in free fall, we are still 15% above our recent low. So we're still looking for a daily higher low. It has not been set yet. We've got our low, high of the bounce, and we're scouting a higher low compared to 685. C-Web, same thing. Inside bar bear break. So we've got our low, high, and the bulls have to hold 1560 for a higher low to form. IAN is already dropping to a lower low. So still, anything under 214, just a daily lower high. And again, how many USMJ names are dropping to a lower low? Some of them, and those are the weaker ones, and the ones that are not are stronger right now. So IAN, definitely one of the weaker names. OH, one of the weaker names. It's dropped below 522. There was some dip buying there into the end of the day. Some decent volume on that dip buying. Didn't even change the 15-minute trend, though, so nothing majorly significant. But again, we can just categorize who has broken to a lower low, who still has a support level. And that's enough to make two distinct categories. OH and IAN would go in the weaker categories. GTII would be in the stronger. We've got our low, high, scouting a higher low compared to 1048. TRUL, certainly the strongest today on my screen in the MJ space. Long lower wick bouncing right off around the $12 support. Exponential support is holding, and bulls are hoping this is a bull flag to try and get convincingly over 1285 after just a 5-minute market order took us there a couple days ago with no follow through. So the USMJ names are definitely holding on better than Canadian MJ names right now. I am more focused on the USMJ names, not for short-term oversold bounces. I want liquidity on CGC, CRON, ACB, APHA if I'm looking for day trade flips. If I'm looking for swing trades in the sector, I'm waiting for that catalyst in the MJ space, getting the vote in the Senate on the SAFE Act. If that comes, you better believe that I'm going to be looking for multiple day positions in this sector, and you also better believe that I'm going to be selling into that strength. For me personally, I'm not just going to be holding into long-term positions. Maybe I'll sell half and try and keep half a position for a longer-term hold, for eventual uplistings. But again, the way that I treat the sector and the way that I treat stocks in general, which I've said many times that a lot of old school traders and investors would find crazy, but these aren't stocks to me. These aren't companies. They are stocks. They're not companies. They don't have physical footprints. They're not actual representative of anything. They're numbers in cyberspace. When they go up, I capitalize on them going up. When they go down, I try and capitalize on them going down. I don't short the MJ sector because the availability of shares to short is hard to come by in the US. But again, that just keeps me, I just want my money. Give me that US dollar because that's what I'm in the game for. And when I have that profit, I'm going to take it and then look to have that grow somewhere else. So not saying that I'm just going to look for a quick in and out on the MJ space as a whole, but you better believe that I am looking to lock in profit in the MJ space as we have it. And the last thing I'm going to be doing is just holding a red position. And that's the case for anything, anywhere. So I know it's a little bit too late in terms of people being able to utilize that advice themselves in a lot of instances in this sector, but that's just my mindset, and that will always be my mindset for trading. I don't care what it is or what it represents in the physical world. For me, it's all intangible, flashing numbers, and that's been treating me fairly well as far as keeping it that way. So, I'm done talking. Hopefully, we can move on and take it one day at a time and see if we got any more red tomorrow. Again, Monday bounce is what I would like to see. I'd like to see a week close tomorrow, and I'm going to be patient, because if I miss the hourly oversold bounce, it's no big deal. The sector's not going to run away without me. So be very picky, but wait for a trade to come to you. Don't go out there trying to chase a trade, and we'll see you next time. Have a good rest of your night. Do good things.